Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 269, The Quiet Chaos, How Unhealthy People Fuel Anxiety. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 269, The Quiet Chaos, How Unhealthy People Fuel Anxiety. Well, welcome to a brand new month, which is going to be dedicated to new beginnings and really digging deep to make sure we are curating the kind of life that we truly deserve. And hey, I'm back, and I've been out for a few weeks working on moving house and all the fun that comes with that. And I'm so glad to be back just in time to get down into our theme for October. And that is all about following your gut and revamping your life, getting rid of what no longer serves you and risking following your gut to what is truly best for you. And to start off, let's look at what's around you. You know how big I am on environments, and I talk about them all the time because it's really important. But before we get into that, make sure that you sign up for a power hour with me. I have some openings in October for that. I have a few left, so get in there now. Hit the show notes. The link is right there. If you have any questions about it, just message me and I'll be happy to answer them. And don't forget the free Boundaries ebook resource that I have to get you started on working on boundaries and taking better care of yourself. And there's more. There's a 3-part masterclass that you can dig a little bit deeper into how you lost your voice and how to get it back. And then the flagship course that I have, Find Your Voice, which is 12 modules, lots of great deep work and group coaching so that you're not alone in the work. The link for that is also in the show notes. Very easy to get into and get started right away. Okay, so today we're going deeper into what it looks like to have unhealthy people involved in your daily life, not just your close relationships. And the people there, especially during those big life moments when you need clarity and you need support and you need some peace. And when I say unhealthy people, I'm not just talking about the ones who are blatantly toxic. I'm talking more about the sneaky ones, the ones who don't respect boundaries, the ones who schedule things without asking, and the ones who twist honesty just enough to make you feel off balance. And yes, these behaviors can be so subtle, and because of that, they often fly under the radar. But today we're going to talk about how their impact on your mental health and decision-making can be huge. And since I just had the interesting experience of buying and selling a home, I experienced the stress of having some of those chess players have very unhealthy behavior. And it was very stressful, but also we want to talk today about how, just like I experienced, the ramifications can be really long-lasting. So this isn't just something I sit with clients around, even though I do that a lot. I felt this personally. And so what exactly am I talking about here? So let's start with a clear contrast between healthy and unhealthy behaviors, because I think, as you hear me say all the time, that understanding that difference is key to staying sane and to making better decisions for yourself. So healthy behaviors, whether it's a partner, your friend, your colleague, someone you're doing business with, are rooted in mutual respect, which means these people respect your time, your energy, and your boundaries. They ask you before they assume. They communicate as clearly as they can. They give you a heads up. They aren't vague. They're more specific. And if they make a mistake, they own up to it. Healthy people don't take advantage of you. They don't want to. And they don't expect you to read their minds. So therefore, They don't leave you second guessing yourself or feeling anxious because you're not sure what their next move is going to be, or when something is supposed to happen, or when it's going to be scheduled, or when it's finished, all the things. So their honesty, their consistency, and I think their emotional openness actually reduces stress, especially during big transitions and big events in your life. Unhealthy behaviors, on the other hand, I think are rather sneaky. These people might seem considerate on the surface, but they'll schedule things without asking. They'll make assumptions about your availability or even your interest in things. So they might omit information just to keep themselves in control, or to twist conversations just enough to make you doubt what's real. Or maybe they're holding something back that they don't want you to know. Unhealthy people are often selfish in very subtle ways, showing up only when it benefits them, or prioritizing their needs without considering yours. And they'll often use diversions and distractions to keep you from calling them out on what they're doing. The hardest part, I think, is that these unhealthy behaviors don't always scream toxic right away, so you don't see them. They can look like someone just being busy or forgetful. But over time, the patterns are what matters because the patterns reveal themselves. You're constantly feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and unsure of where you stand with them. And that's because their behaviors push you into a state of hypervigilance. And it might be so low level you don't notice it after a while because it becomes your steady state. So instead of focusing on your own priorities, you're left navigating their hidden agendas. And you're trying to figure out how to deal with the constant disruptions they cause. And I want to stop here because this is really important. That is often why we don't notice what's really happening, because we're so busy putting out fire after fire after fire and solutioning and trying to fix something or figure out what we can do instead. So you're so in the moment putting out fires you don't see oftentimes what's really going on. So when you're dealing with unhealthy people, there can be really big impacts, especially during big life moments or when there's big decisions to be made. And the stress for some people can become unbearable. It adds a layer of confusion and self-doubt that you don't need. You might start to feel like you're losing your grip. Like no matter how much you plan or try to stay on top of things, something or someone seems to always be derailing you. These moments are already stressful, whether it's making a career move, navigating difficult family decisions, or just managing a busy schedule. The last thing you need is extra anxiety caused by people who don't respect boundaries. And I really experienced that trying to get a house ready for sale, get it shown and get it sold, and buying a new one. And here's the real kicker, I think. When you're surrounded by unhealthy behaviors that are subtle, like people crossing your boundaries in ways that aren't overtly aggressive or manipulative, like they can be explained away, it becomes really hard to even recognize what's happening. And so you know what's going to happen. This subtlety makes you question yourself rather than the situation. Because you might notice that something feels off, but because it's not in your face toxic behavior, you explain it away. You doubt your feelings. You rationalize it. You say, oh, it's just the stress of moving or looking for a job or whatever. And this is what I call invisible anxiety, because that's where stress builds up slowly and quietly without a clear trigger that you can point to. And the insidious part of this is that it keeps you on edge. You feel uncomfortable, maybe even anxious, but you can't put your finger on exactly why. Or like I said, you just chalk it up to the inherent stress of selling your house or moving or interviewing for a new job. So you feel uncomfortable and maybe even anxious, but you can't put your finger on it. It's like a low-grade hum of tension in the background of your life. And then you start wondering, God, am I being too sensitive? Am I being too ridiculous, too over the top? Am I overreacting? Should I just let it go? Is it a thing? And this kind of anxiety can leave you feeling like you're walking on eggshells. You're not sure when it's okay to speak up, to set boundaries, to go elsewhere, or to express your needs because the behaviors you're dealing with seem so small and trivial, like you're making a BFD out of something small. But here's the thing I want you to know. Just because the behaviors are subtle doesn't mean they're not harmful. They can chip away at your sense of peace, and they make it harder for you to even trust yourself. Over time, this invisible anxiety clouds your judgment, makes it really hard to focus on big, important things that you need to be focusing on. Your decision-making becomes a lot more reactive. Maybe you're trying to avoid conflict or keep the peace rather than rooted in what's best for you. Maybe you start second-guessing yourself, like, is this really worth bringing up? Or maybe I'm just making a big deal. Maybe I'm just stressed. So you end up kind of quietly blaming yourself for feeling off balance, even though it's the subtle behaviors of others that are creating the instability. The result? Your decisions will be impacted. It's going to be harder to keep up and set enough boundaries to take care of yourself. And you might even find yourself stuck in relationships or situations that continue to drain you, simply because you've become conditioned to believe that the problem lies with you, not with the unhealthy behavior you're encountering. And I think these unhealthy behaviors do a lot more than just cause stress. They can create a ripple effect that can impact many areas of your life. When people cross our boundaries or act selfishly, the consequences, I think, can often extend beyond our emotional strain. Financial issues can come up when someone's dishonesty or lack of responsibility leads to poor decisions. Maybe leads to missed payments or unexpected costs or costs you money. Maybe there's lost opportunities because their manipulative behavior distracts you from focusing on your own goals or doing what you need to do. Oftentimes, you become way too overwhelmed by their drama to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And then what we don't even think about is our other relationships, like the collateral damage, because these behaviors can create tension in our other relationships. Because the stress and anxiety is going to spill over, and it's going to affect how you show up with others. It's going to diminish your energy and your ability to focus on them. And so there's that ripple effect. This is why I think it's so crucial to learn to identify those subtle boundary crossing behaviors and acknowledge how they make you feel, even when they seem small. Because small can have a huge impact because of what it can do and what it can mean. And I think recognizing that invisible anxiety for what it is, it's an emotional response to being disrespected or undervalued or both. When you recognize that, you can regain control. You can stop that cycle of self-blame and thinking you're crazy and start setting the boundaries that protect your peace and your mental clarity. So let's talk about what this looks like in real life. Let me give you some examples. So let's say there's scheduling going on, scheduling of something. The healthy behavior would look like person A says, "Hey, I'd love to get together this weekend. Are you free Saturday afternoon, or would another time work better for you?" And person B says, "Saturday works for me. Let's plan for 2 p.m. So in this example, person A asks before making plans because they're respecting person B's time and schedule, and they don't assume anything. They're also very clear and concise, and they're specific, and there's no assumption about availability. They said 2 p.m., not just the afternoon. Now let's look at how that rolls out in an unhealthy way. Person A says, "Hey, I planned a lunch for us Saturday at 2 p.m. I'm sure you're free since you don't usually do much on weekends." And person B says, "Hold up, man. Actually, I had other plans, but I guess I'll cancel them." So here, person A makes a lot of assumptions without asking. Very selfish. And it leaves person B feeling like they need to rearrange their plans. This creates unnecessary drama and hurts trust in the relationship. Another example is how we handle mistakes. Person A says, "Hey, I realized I double booked us for Saturday. I am so sorry about that. Let's reschedule and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." Person B says, No worries. I appreciate you owning up to it. Let me know what other day works for you and we'll figure it out. So in this example, person A is taking responsibility for their mistake. They communicate this clearly, I think, and I think that fosters trust and understanding. Now, unhealthy behavior looks like person A says, "Oh, I forgot we had plans. I guess I'm too busy to keep track of everything. You could have reminded me, Person B starts to say, "Well, I really shouldn't have to remind you." So here, obviously, person A shifts the blame and avoids responsibility. And it's very disrespectful of person B. It makes them feel unappreciated and their boundaries disrespected. That's manipulation. That's not safe. What about being emotionally open during transition times when things are hard? Person A says, "Hey, I know you've been going through a lot with the new job. How are you feeling about everything? Is there anything I can do to support you?" Person B says, "Thanks for asking. I'm feeling really overwhelmed, but it helps knowing that I can talk it through with you." Person A made it very safe for person B. Now, unhealthy looks like person A says, "You seem stressed all the time. I don't know why you're making such a big deal about this job." Oh boy. Person B says, "Well, I'm going through a lot and it's been tough." A says, "I don't get it. You just need to handle it." Ouch. This is a more glaring example of dismissing person B's feelings. There's no emotional support and there's a lack of empathy. That's going to hurt that relationship. What about respecting boundaries? Healthy looks like person A says, "Hey, I noticed you've been a bit quieter lately. If you need space, just let me know, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk." Person B says, "Thank you for understanding. I just need a little time to recharge, but I appreciate your support." So here, person A respects person B's emotional boundary, and they're offering space without pressure. I think it shows care and understanding, and it reduces stress in the relationship. Unhealthy looks like person A says, "Why haven't you called me? I've been waiting for you to respond, and now it's starting to feel like you don't care." And person B says, "I just needed some time to myself." And A says, "Well, that's not fair to me. You should at least let me know what's going on." Here, person A doesn't respect person B's need for space, and they're making it all about them instead of offering support. So these examples, I think, highlight the differences between healthy communication, good boundaries, taking personal responsibility, and just how important they are, just how much they matter and how much they reduce our anxiety, just in our daily interactions. Healthy people create environments where there's emotional safety and trust. And unhealthy behaviors cause confusion, stress, tension, distrust, and anxiety. So what can you do to stay sane? What do you do when you're surrounded by people who don't respect your boundaries? Well, I think it starts with awareness and then taking some active steps to protect your peace and other things in your life. Well, first, you got to look for patterns. The first step is acknowledging when these subtle, unhealthy behaviors are happening. So I want you to really start paying even more attention to how you feel around certain people and why. Do you leave interactions feeling drained, anxious, or like you've just been manipulated, but you can't put your finger on why? Once you notice these patterns, it becomes a lot easier to set limits, and you shouldn't be feeling those things. Now, I'm not talking about having an emotionally honest, difficult conversation with someone. That's totally different. The second thing is really keep your boundaries clear. Healthy boundaries are going to be key to keeping your peace. But it's not just about setting them. We have to enforce them, which is the hard part. But that's when it matters. So if someone schedules things without asking, make it a point to say, "Hey, I'm not available unless we've agreed on this beforehand. I'm sorry." And it's going to feel really uncomfortable at first. But the more you practice asserting what you need, the healthier you notice that it is, and the healthier you become, and the more natural it becomes to do that. Another one you hear me talk about all the time, limit your exposure. This one's big. Look, you don't always have control over who you interact with. I get that. Especially if that unhealthy person is a family member, a boss, a partner, or someone you have to do some kind of business with. But you can certainly limit the amount of time and energy that you give them. You're allowed to take a step back from people who drain you. It's not always about cutting them off entirely, although with some people it's necessary. But it's more about managing your exposure so they don't have constant access to your mental and your emotional bandwidth. The other thing you can do simultaneously is really try to anchor yourself in healthy relationships. It really matters. When you're surrounded by unhealthy people, it's so important to cultivate and nurture relationships with others who are respectful, who are honest with you and support you. These people not only are there for you to feel more comfortable with, but I think they act as your reality check. Especially when you start feeling crazy on the inside, you need that. They're the ones who remind you that your feelings are valid, that you deserve respect, and that guess what? Your boundaries aren't negotiable, and there's nothing wrong with you for that. They're the ones who remind you that your feelings are valid, that you deserve respect, and that your boundaries are non-negotiable, no matter what anyone else says. And self-care is non-negotiable as well. And this may sound obvious, but when you're dealing with toxic people, your self-care often takes a back seat, and even if you don't mean to, because they create so much chaos that you probably won't have time to take care of yourself. So really try to make sure you're taking care of what you can. Your physical, your emotional needs, getting your exercise, your meditation, your therapy, time for a walk, just some time to recharge and regroup and get grounded. Give yourself permission to say no and to switch gears and to change plans and whatever you need to do, because this is one of the biggest causes of anxiety when dealing with unhealthy people. And that's the guilt that they're going to instill in you when you try to set boundaries. But here's the truth. You know you're allowed to say no. So whether you're declining an invitation, you're saying no to a favor, or you're stepping away from a toxic conversation, you don't owe anyone constant access to your time and energy. And don't try to fix them. This is key. When you're dealing with unhealthy people, it's so easy to fall into the trap of trying to change them or to create conflict by trying to make them see the error of their ways or prove to them that you need better treatment. Of course, you deserve better treatment, but this is only going to drain you further because they can't hear you. Instead, focus on your own actions, your own boundaries, your own choices, and leave their behavior where it belongs with them. So at the end of the day, the most important thing, I think, is to remember that you're not crazy. When you're feeling anxious, unsure, or constantly on edge because of someone else's subtle behaviors or their selfishness, it's a signal that boundaries are being crossed. Life is stressful enough, especially when you're going through big things, and you don't need unhealthy people making it worse. So try to take your time to assess who's around you, more importantly, who's in your inner circle, and how their behavior impacts your well-being. Start to look for patterns and notice the connections. Try to protect your energy as well. Set your boundaries and maintain them. And remember that you deserve relationships where mutual respect, honesty, and care are at the foundation, not chaos. I hope this episode gives you some clarity on how to spot these behaviors and, more importantly, what to do to protect your peace. So today we tackled an issue that I think many of us face but don't always realize, and that's the impact that certain people can have on our daily stress levels, especially when we're navigating big life changes or making big decisions. We talked about why some relationships and some interactions leave us feeling anxious, confused, angry sometimes, even when the behaviors involved seem so subtle or insignificant. So if you've ever found yourself in that space and then end up second-guessing your choices or doubting your instincts, hopefully this episode helped you shine a light on what might be going on below the surface. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Hope you walked away with something helpful and to know that no, you're not crazy. If you don't already get the newsletter, go to ownitpowercast.com and you can sign up there, and all of the links for the Power Hour, any upcoming workshops, and the courses are in the show notes. And don't forget to join me Wednesday nights on Facebook Live, because this is where we have some great conversations on topics like we got into today. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.